Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from tonight? Are you curled up under a warm blanket in your little apartment in Dallas? Maybe catching this from a rainy street corner cafe in Seattle? Or perhaps you're in a sleepy town like mine where the biggest thrill of the week is when the postman remembers to shut the mailbox flap. Because what I'm about to share happened in a place exactly like that. And even now, it still catches my breath when I think of it. It was early spring, the kind that still carries winter's damp breath, where mornings have that crisp bite that makes you pull your cardigan tighter. I just come in from sweeping the porch. There's something about brushing away last season's dead leaves that settles my mind. That's when I heard a knock on the door. Unexpected, sharp, but not impatient. When I opened it there, he was Ethan, my neighbor's son. Only he wasn't a boy anymore. 25 tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of quiet confidence that comes from building things with your own two hands. I knew he'd been working construction. His mother, Janet, used to boast about him endlessly before she moved away. Left the house to him, she told me once. Time for him to stand on his own, and clearly he was. Standing there on my porch with a bouquet of pale pink roses in one hand. And that smile. Oh, friends. I hadn't seen a smile like that in a very long time. "Hi, Miss Clara," he said, eyes glimmering like he was holding a secret. "These are for you." I blinked at the flowers. "For me? What's the occasion?" He just shrugged, that crooked grin tugging at his lips. "Do I need one?" I laughed, shaking my head. "Well, no. But it's not every day a handsome young man turns up on my doorstep with roses. They reminded me of you," he said, his voice dropping just enough to make me look up from the petals and into his eyes. And there it was, that pause. The kind where the air seems to buzz in your ears, where you suddenly become aware of every single heartbeat. I stepped aside. "Come in, I'll put them in water." He followed me in his boots, landing heavy on the old wooden floorboards. I was suddenly aware of how still the house was. How empty. Since my husband passed 3 years ago, the walls had learned the sound of silence. I kept it tidy, drank my tea each afternoon, and tried not to notice how the days slid into each other. My son visited when he could, but he lived 2 states away. Most nights it was just me, a good book, and the hum of the fridge. But Ethan's presence, it shifted something. Like sunlight slipping through blinds into a room you thought had been dark forever. He leaned against the kitchen counter as I rummaged for a vase, and I could feel his gaze. Not hungry, not invasive, just noticing, like I was worth looking at. And I wasn't used to that. "Your hair looks nice like that," he said suddenly, nodding toward the loose bun I'd tied up earlier. "Kind of elegant," I smiled, caught off guard. "You're awfully charming today." "Maybe I've always been charming," he said. "You just never noticed." I laughed again, but it wasn't just his words. It was the way he said them. Slow measured, as if he was testing deeper waters than small talk. I trimmed the roses, added a pinch of sugar to the water, an old habit, and set them in the vase. My hands were steady, but my heart, not so much. When I turned back, he was closer than I'd realized. not crowding me, just near enough that I could smell fresh laundry and cedarwood. His sleeves were rolled, forearms tanned from the sun. In that moment, he looked older than 25. Or maybe I just felt younger. "I've been meaning to talk to you," he said, voice low. His eyes dipped not to my body, but to my hands. The same hands that had soothed babies, wiped away tears, cooked dinners, held my husband through hard nights. About what I asked, trying to sound light, his gaze lifted and landed on me, steady, unflinching. About how I feel when I'm around you. I didn't breathe, couldn't. "I know it's strange," he rushed on, "and I don't want to make you uncomfortable. I had to say it. I've thought about this about you for a long time." I gripped the edge of the sink, my throat dry. I was 66. My hair carried silver, my skin carried stories, my heart carried years of both love and loss. And here was this young man I'd watched grow from a distance, looking at me like I was still worth loving. It was terrifying and thrilling and wildly, wildly confusing. Why, now I asked barely above a whisper. He smiled soft, not smug. Because I finally had the courage. And because you make the street feel like home, like something more. There it was again, that pause. Only this time I didn't rush to fill it with words. I let it stretch between us, heavy with something unnamed, something that felt like it could tip either way. He stepped back. "I should go," he murmured. I didn't mean to make things weird. And just like that, he turned toward the door. I stood there, frozen in the kitchen, the roses at my back, their scent curling through the air, like a secret I wasn't ready to share. Before he opened the door, he glanced over his shoulder once more and said the words that lodged deep inside me. Words that would echo in my mind long after he was gone. Just think about it. Okay, then he was gone. And I was left with the silence. The kind that wasn't peaceful. The kind that made you hear your own heartbeat. The flowers stayed right where I'd placed them on the counter. I didn't fuss over them, didn't rearrange them, didn't even top off the water. By morning, one petal had already begun to curl and droop. And every time I passed by, my hand would hover over the vase before pulling back, afraid that if I touched them, I'd make last night too real. Or worse, I'd make it impossible to pretend it hadn't happened. I barely slept. His voice looped in my head like a half-forgotten melody. Just think about it. Okay. And I did think about it. Far more than I wanted to. I thought about the way he'd looked at me. Not with pity. Not with polite admiration, but with a kind of reverence. Like I was something rare. Something worth seeing. That morning, I wrapped my robe around me, made tea, and stepped out onto the porch. The same porch I'd swept yesterday. The same worn planks I'd paced 1,000 times. Only now it felt different. Like I was waiting, and I hated that I was, but I didn't see him that day. His truck was gone when I peeked out the window. No rumble of the engine, no clang of tools from the garage. Just quiet. Maybe he was embarrassed. Maybe he regretted saying it. Or maybe, and this stung, maybe it had meant more to me than it ever did to him. By the second day, the sharp ache had dulled into a restless throb. So I did what I've always done when I need to think. I baked banana bread, the kind with dark chocolate chunks and a hint of cinnamon. My late husband used to call it my thinking loaf. It filled the house with a warmth. I could hold on to something dependable in a world that had felt unpredictable lately. I just pulled it from the oven when I heard the knock. Soft, hesitant. I didn't rush. I slipped off the oven mitts, smoothed my blouse. Yes, I'd chosen something nicer than usual that morning and walked to the door, and there he was. Ethan. No flowers this time. No teasing grin. Just him, hands buried in his pockets. Eyes searching mine like he wasn't sure. He wanted to see the answer. I was hoping we could talk, he said. I hesitated, then stepped aside. Come in. He moved slower this time, careful, as if the floor might give way beneath him. I poured tea without asking. He accepted it without a word. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the steam rising between us like a veil. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then he broke the silence. I didn't sleep much either. I looked up. His eyes were tired, but clear. No games, no posturing. Whatever this was, it was real. I shouldn't have said what I said, he continued. Not because I didn't mean it. I meant every word. But I just dropped it on you. No warning. That wasn't fair. My fingers curled around my cup. You didn't drop anything, Ethan. You told the truth. That takes courage. His eyebrows lifted slightly, as if my answer surprised him. So, you're not angry? No. Confused, yes. Surprised, absolutely. But angry, no. His shoulders eased just a fraction, but I saw it. I thought a lot about what you said, I went on. And about how it made me feel. He leaned in just slightly. Waiting, I felt flattered and scared. And then flattered again because it's been a long time since someone looked at me the way you do. Like I'm still a woman. Not just somebody's mother. Not just a widow. Not just the neighbor who waves from across the street. You reminded me of something I thought I'd lost. He swallowed, his lips parting. That's exactly it. You are still a woman, Clara. My breath caught. The way he said my name, not Miss Clara, not Mom, but just Clara, like it belonged to him in that moment, made something shift inside me. You're beautiful, he said. Not magazine beautiful, real beautiful. The kind of beauty, he said softly, that lives in the way you tilt your head when you laugh. Or the way you fold towels neat and square. Or hum to yourself when you think no one's listening. And just like that, something cracked open in me. A dam I didn't even know I'd built. I dropped my gaze, blinking too fast. Do you know how long it's been since anyone noticed those things I whispered? He reached across the table slowly, like he was asking permission before his hand even got close. And when his fingers finally brushed mine, steady warm, it was like every nerve in my hand lit up at once. I noticed, he said simply. For a long moment, we just sat there, fingertips grazing, breathing shallow, no words needed. Then I pulled my hand back, the air between us, suddenly feeling colder. Ethan, this can't be simple. I'm not asking for simple, he said, eyes steady on mine. I'm asking for honest. I know people might not understand. I know some would judge me 6 ways to Sunday. But I've never cared about them. I care about you. I rose and walked to the window, folding my arms tight across my chest. You're young. You have everything ahead of you. I've already lived my life. He came to stand beside me, close but not crowding. And that life made it you. Do you know how much grace, how much wisdom you carry? You think I want someone my age still trying to figure themselves out? I know who you are, Clara, and I admire the hell out of it. I turned to face him, inches apart. You know this would change everything, I said quietly. I'm counting on it, he replied. There was no kiss. Not yet. Just a silence so full of promise it felt alive. He didn't push. He didn't beg. He just smiled, a soft, patient curve of his lips, and said, I'll see you soon. As I watched him walk away, I realized something strange. For the first time in years, I wanted to be seen. Not just waved at across the street or nodded to in the grocery store. Seen in the ways no one else dared to look. And Ethan, with a handful of flowers, a few honest words, and the courage to knock on my door. He had done that. The week that followed felt like I was living in 2 separate worlds. In one, I was still Clara, the woman who clipped coupons, watered her hydrangeas at dusk, and made shopping lists before heading to the store. In the other, I was someone else entirely. A woman who woke each morning with a quiet buzz under her skin, wondering if I'd see him, wondering if any of this was real or just a beautiful flicker that would vanish when reality intruded. He didn't come by right away. He gave me space, but he didn't disappear. One afternoon, a text arrived. Simple. Still thinking about you. Hope your tea was strong today. I stared at it far too long. That care, that tenderness, it felt both strange and achingly lovely. I didn't respond immediately. I didn't know what to say. But I smiled, and I held that smile through the evening, even when the tea went cold and the silence crept back in. 2 days later, I saw him again. I'd gone for my usual walk around the block, something I found myself doing more often now, as if movement could straighten my thoughts. The late afternoon sun painted everything in gold, the air carrying that soft sweetness that makes you linger just a little longer before heading inside. I turned the corner toward my house and spotted him in his driveway, wiping his hands on a rag beside an open toolbox. His shirt was streaked with grease, and he was humming a tune I didn't recognize. He didn't see me at first. But like always, he seemed to sense me before I spoke. His head turned then fully, and when our eyes met, that same easy, familiar smile spread across his face. Evening, he called. Got trouble? I asked, nodding toward the open hood. Not trouble, he said, wiping his hands, just tuning her up. She's old but reliable. I chuckled. Sounds familiar. He tilted his head. Was that a self-burn? Maybe. I paused, my lips curving. Maybe I'm feeling brave today. His grin deepened. I like you brave. I didn't look away. I've been thinking too. Yeah, I nodded. About you, about this, about what it could mean. He waited patient, and I'm still scared, I admitted. But I'm also curious. Something lit in his eyes. Clara, if all we ever do is talk, that's enough for me. I just want time with you, to know you, That steadiness in his voice, it was like a balm. "You free tomorrow?" he asked. I raised a brow. "Are you asking me on a date?" "If you want to call it that," he said with a grin. I was thinking coffee or a walk down by the lake. Nothing fancy. I hesitated for only a heartbeat before nodding. "All right, tomorrow." And that's how I ended up the next afternoon, standing in front of my closet, like a teenager again, agonizing over what to wear. I must have tried on 5 different outfits, each one leaving me more flustered than the last. There are afternoons when you stand in front of the mirror and suddenly realize you're smiling. Not because you see a perfect version of yourself, but because for the first time in years, you feel excited. That afternoon, Anna stood in front of my closet like a 17-year-old girl on a first date. 5 outfits lay haphazardly on the bed, some too simple, some too formal, some that made me look like I was trying too hard. In the end, I chose a pale blue blouse, just enough to brighten my eyes, and a neat pair of jeans. My hair was curled a little lipstick, enough to feel still me, but newer. Ethan picked me up at 3. No flowers, no gift, just a slightly embarrassed smile and a compliment that made my cheeks burn. We drove the windows, down the wind in my hair. Soft music played not loud as a backdrop for the stories to flow. The lakeside that afternoon was sparkling. Family children, ducks waddling along the water's edge. And the 2 of us sitting on a wooden bench in the shade of a tree. Ethan told me about his dream of opening a small workshop, about his late mother, and the advice she left behind: always trust your intuition. Then he asked about my husband. I talked about a man who had been my whole world, kind, funny, and always stable. But when he asked, "Do you miss him?" I said honestly, yes, every day. But not like before. Now, I miss the feeling of someone really understanding me. He was silent for a moment. Then his hand found mine, not rushed, just touching like a question. "You deserve to be known again. Not because of who you were, but because of who you are right now." I took his hand again, and so the afternoon passed in the twilight. The days that followed were like a new breath. Small notes, simple messages, but they made me smile all day. One evening, I invited Ethan over for dinner, the shepherd's pie my husband had loved. He arrived early bringing wine and a slightly crooked smile. We ate, laughed, and after clearing the table, sat on the sofa, the TV on, but no one watching. "Can I kiss you?" he asked, his voice barely more than a breath. I nodded. The kiss wasn't loud, not passionate. It was deep and calm, like a lake that was still and endless. When he left with another light kiss on the forehead, I knew we had crossed a line. The next morning I looked in the mirror and saw a different Anna. Not younger, but more alive. This wasn't a boy saves a woman who has lost faith in love story. This is a story about someone who reminded me that I'm not done yet. And sometimes the most beautiful gift isn't a bouquet of flowers, but a look in your eyes that says, "I see you. I really do."